同志们好。
Xi Jinping is called the chairman of everything in China. So he's the head of the Communist Party, he's the president, he's the head of the military. All power kind of flows into him, civil, military, kind of administration.
March 2018. President Xi Jinping was voted leader for life of China's Communist Party.
接受人民监督，为建设。
He wants to create this sense of stability and sustainability in his power, but it also exposes him to a lot of risk because he's now in the firing line for everything. If it goes right, cool. If it doesn't, then he takes the blame.
This moment was a message to the world. Xi will be very different to the last long-standing chairman, Mao Zedong.
Xi's China and Mao Zedong's China are different, so that's the difference. Mao Zedong's China was marginalised, didn't have many diplomatic allies, per capita GDP of less than $200. Xi Jinping's China has many, many alliances. It's got a huge economy, world's second biggest economy, per capita GDP of $12,000.
Andrew Hastie, who leads Australia's Joint Intelligence Committee, has likened the rise of China to Nazi Germany.
My voice is in my pen and my op-ed stands and I don't resile from it. We've got a great democracy. That's what democracies do, we debate, and so I welcome the contest of ideas.
Is the making of those comments in a public way necessary, and is it helpful to Australia's national interest?
From my point of view, China is a very, very important customer to Australia.
It doesn't matter who we're talking about. We want to make sure that all of our partners respect the sovereignty of our country.
Andrew's free to make comments that he wishes to make as a member of the backbench.
He was saying that when you get big assumptions about the world wrong, the consequences can be quite damaging. You can see on the streets of Hong Kong and in the detention camps in Xinjiang that the Chinese state's getting more authoritarian and more controlling, not more democratic.
Andrew Hastie is not the first to make the link.
When it comes to China, our greatest rival, American elites bow deeply to the elderly fascists who run that country.
The president's former advisor reportedly also compared China to Nazi Germany.
Aquino made a veiled comparison between China and Nazi Germany.
That language is radioactive, and what we need in debating the Chinese state and the way Australia should engage with Chinese power is not a hysterical, emotional debate, but a calm, objective debate. So comparing to the Third Reich, I think I would call unhelpful, and it's more of a distraction to the discussion we need to have.
Between Hastie's comments and the flashpoint of Hong Kong, questions are being asked about President Xi's ambition and just how far he's prepared to go to achieve his agenda.
China looks far stronger than it probably really is, and I don't think that it is really convinced about having a global role.
This October marks 70 years of Communist Party rule in China.
China believes its political system is unique. It is socialism with Chinese characteristics, capitalism with Chinese characteristics, and it was always communism with Chinese characteristics. So it's fine with its system as long as you don't criticize it. It's fine with your system as long as you work in ways that help China. Economic power will translate to geopolitical power, so that's the assumption. And at the moment, of course, the problem is that America and many others get the economic power thing. They think that's fine. But this geopolitical role for China, because its political system is so different to anyone else, is not accepted.
I think we have made tremendous progress in our relationship with China.
Key to China's future is President Xi's signature Belt and Road Initiative, launched 6 years ago, which Beijing wants to boost its access to markets and resources via enormous land and sea bridges.
So it's actually China proactively saying what it wants from the world around it and how it wants to engage with the world around it, and to really sort of answer some of those questions and unease about what is China up to.
Some analysts see it as a means of leveraging developing countries into debt traps, but others see it simply as an investment strategy for China to flex its growing economic muscle.
That idea that China is simply investing in order to, in future times, put screws on other governments or to take over some of its investments, I think is pretty conclusively proved to be an overstatement.
China's military ambitions are also growing, opening its first overseas military base in Djibouti 2 years ago. Its militarisation of another critical trade route, the South China Sea, hasn't stopped.
I think China wants in its region to have strategic space, so the South and East China Sea, it feels, are its space. And it's very frustrated that America and Australia and other powerful economies, they can control their space around them, and China can't do the same back.
China's strategic reach is increasing. It's nowhere near comparable with the strategic reach of the United States.
Internal dissent in China is brutally repressed. Many fear Hong Kong will be a watershed moment.
I think the world looks at what happens in Hong Kong as symptomatic of what might happen elsewhere. And the Chinese military going into Hong Kong would be absolutely fulfilling the most negative narratives or kind of impressions of American critics.
What started as Gough Whitlam's historic engagement with Communist China has now become a defining diplomatic relationship for Australia.
As China's power in the world and its willingness to use it has grown, those strategic differences, which used to be in the background, have come into the foreground. And now we have to manage those. So now every economic issue between Australia and China has a security element.
It's not really been clear what the kind of message from the government has been in Australia to try and deal with this sort of question of what Australia really thinks about China's influence and what it wants from it.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.